Hi, Brother Bro Movies! The Third Man is our new movie. Sorry for the delay and away from action. And here is part of the theme music, of course, that great movie. So today we're going to go through a movie, probably from about over 60 years ago, I think, James. Yeah. So marvelous movie, made in just after the end of the Second World War, based in Vienna. So maybe we might sketch out things then, James, about this movie and about maybe give some background of it if you can. Thank you.
Yeah, so The Third Man is actually based off a novel by Graham Greene, also called The Third Man. And the rights were bought by David O. Selznick, the famous producer who produced Gone with the Wind and Rebecca and many great films. And he managed to get Orson Welles and Joseph Cotton to star in the film. And
they were two great friends, weren't they, James? Yeah.
Cotton was the best man at Orson Welles' wedding to Rita Hayworth. And
he was a good actor, well known around Hollywood, acted in many great movies.
He was in Citizen Kane as well, which of course
was
Orson Welles' debut film. And he plays Holly Martins in the film, who's kind of he's just kind of
a difficult kind of role to play, all right. And now as we sketch things out for The Third Man, it starts in a kind of war-strewn Vienna with rubble everywhere. And the city that's split between the various war rivals. And therefore you've a bit of dysfunction in the city, so to speak. A lot of different polices with different armies and sharing of information and not sharing of information. So
Third man, hated by 1,000 men,
desired by one woman.
The third man, hanging is too good for him.
Nothing is too good for the third man.
Her man, who was the third man.
The man on every woman's lips.
Vienna, 1950. A city fearful of its present, uncertain of its future. Vienna, the once gay capital of a light-hearted people. Here in the shadows of its palaces and ruins is told with tenderness, drama, and suspense the story of the third man.
There was a third man there. I suppose that doesn't sound peculiar to you.
I'm not interested in whether a racketeer like Lime was killed by his friends or by an accident. The only important thing is that he's dead.
Third Man, the story of two men and one woman caught in the dangerous web of an international love affair.
Oh, please, for heaven's sake, stop making him in your image. Harry was real. He wasn't just your friend and my lover.
No, I don't know. I'm just a hack writer who drinks too much and falls in love with girls. You?
Me?
Don't be such a fool, of course.
The Third Man. Joseph Cotton in his most successful performance as an American caught in a whirlpool of continental intrigue. The glamorous Valley is the mysterious Viennese actress who knew the secret of the Third Man.
And Graham Greene, as I say, wrote the movie. Graham Greene had an interesting life in that he socialised quite a bit with members of the spy community, and he had a friendship with Kim Philby, who was a British double agent. So he always had an interest in the intrigue of that. But maybe sketch out the story he wrote then and what was happening with Joseph Cotton's character when he came to Vienna, James.
So Joseph Cotton's character, Holly Martins, comes to Vienna to attend the funeral of his friend Harry Lime. And he hasn't seen Harry in some time, but he attends his funeral, and then he meets this sort of British major called Major Calloway. And Calloway kind of takes him to a bar and he gives him a drink, but then he basically kind of sedates him. And, he wakes up and he meets this sort of elderly guy in a hotel who tells him about Harry Lime. And he later finds out from talking to this woman who was involved with Harry. He meets her after a performance of a play she's been in, and she was obviously very close to Harry and was involved with him, but she has this very attached kind of view of him. She very much adores him, even if he hasn't been particularly kind towards her.
But from an early stage, it appears there's questions over whether Harry is actually dead or not. And his figure hangs over the early part of the movie and the early part throughout.
It's built up. Everyone sort of talks about him, and you think, who is this Harry Lime character? For like 40 or 50 minutes, you're sort of entranced by, who is he? What did he do? Why is he so important?
So the female character of Ali is an actress who didn't feature in that many movies since then, but she's a wonderful role in the movie, which is in black and white, if we should nay. And so therefore this is our first. The poor doorman who we saw at the start as well, James, he I think he possibly might be helping Holly out with filling out the story about Dr. Lime, or Harry Lime. But before he's a chance, he also meets his maker, let's say. Yeah. And that also gives rise to a very, very famous scene with a marvellous, marvellous score of Anton Karas throughout this movie, an amazing use of his zither guitar. I think he was a street player who Orson Welles saw on the streets in Vienna in 1948. And for this one instrument to become, we played it at the start of the show today, just an amazing score. It frames some of the amazing scenes, including the one after the doorman is killed, where the young child, small child in the shadows at the light, accuses Joseph Cotton, Holly's character, of being part of the crime, and the mob chases Harry through the street of Vienna, where of course he comes upon Harry later on as well. But again, it shows you a lot to learn there as well. You've got mob justice, mob rule, people chasing allegations, and it's an interesting part of this movie, what it tells about modern society as well. But as the film develops then, James, I think everyone comes together against Harry to some extent, don't they, I think?
Yeah, so Holly, as I mentioned, sides with Calloway, and they set up sort of a trap where they're going to capture Harry, and they're at this kind of cafe, and Harry appears, and it's actually quite a wonderful scene. Again, the cinematography by Robert Krasner. There's this big tension where you wonder, when is he going to appear? How is he going to appear? And they catch Harry, which leads to a chase, across the streets of
and underneath the street, James, all the time.
It's one of the few.
Yeah, and then you find Joseph Cotton's character Holly falling into the arms of Dr. Wingle and Mr. Kurtz, who are a shady pair who again hold themselves out to be friends of Harry Lime, James, don't you?
Yeah.
And they offer accommodation and help to Mr. Cotton, but perhaps there's two sides to their story, yes?
Yes, they of course know Harry and suspect that he very much is alive, and Holly Martins is kind of suspicious about, well, is he alive or is he really dead, and is very confused by the whole thing. And they basically tell him more information about Harry and what he's been up to, because it's been many years since he's seen Harry, even though they were very good friends. It's been a long time, since they've been in contact.
As I was saying now, Mr. Calloway, or General Calloway, Trevor Howard's wonderful performance, begin to throw a bit of shade on the reputation of Mr. Lime, and that there's some allegations of some awful behaviour regarding the use of penicillin and possibly stealing it and selling it onto the black market. And Joseph Cotton in this jumbled mind now, and Holly in his jumbled mind, goes on a search through the city, and then becomes, I suppose, James, one of the most famous movie scenes in history.
It's really the scene
about 40 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, it's unusual. It's 40 minutes before we actually see Harry Lime, and as I say, there's this big build-up where you wonder who he really is, and then he just shows up, and you have Robert Krasner's cinematography, all that shadows and Dutch angles, and he sees
the cat on the shoe, and the not being scared of the Harry Lime,
the lady with the light on, and she turns it.
Yeah, James. So Valley, the female character, obviously very attached to Harry Lime. So she was played by an actress who didn't appear in many movies since then, but a wonderful role throughout this movie. Yeah. And throughout the early movie, you have people who you think are perhaps not telling the whole truth, like the doorman in the building where Harry used to live. You always wonder if he was telling the truth in respect of the death of Gestorben of Harry Lime, that he'd been hit with a car crossing the road. But I think Calloway also has some doubts there as well in respect to the death of Harry Lime, doesn't he?
Yeah, Calloway brings up a lot of points, and he kind of leads an investigation into the circumstances of Harry's death and tries to get Holly involved, even though Valley's character doesn't want him to sort of do that, and she suspects that he's involved in the whole thing, which of course he is. But we later learn that, let's say Harry has been involved in some very...
Well, we'll come around to that in a second, and I think the movie is based around Joseph Cotton's character surviving life in Vienna for the early part as well. So then Harry steps out into the light then, and he picks up with his old friend Holly. You'd like to think he was happy ever after, but I think it never really... Meeting Harry kind of exposes things to Holly that he'd hoped he'd never hear about his friend, really. They spend a little bit of time together, and I think Harry then meets him for a trip for the day in Vienna, but it isn't a walk in the park, let's say. It's a different type of a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, so in the scene, Holly and Harry are in a Ferris wheel, and they're talking, and Harry reveals to Holly that he's actually been, up to some kind of shady things, and they get into kind of a conversation which leads to one of the probably most famous speeches in film history about the cuckoo clock speech, which Orson Welles actually wrote himself. He rewrote the whole speech as... The
poor Swiss only invented the cuckoo clock with their 500 or 600 years apiece. So, and it becomes really apparent that Harry Lime really doesn't care about individual human beings. He threatens to leave the door with the Ferris wheel open on his poor old friend Holly, and points down on not caring about little people or what he did with Valley's character.
He doesn't really own up for the responsibility of it. No,
for his crimes and the way he's acted. So that really shows Holly that his friend is a bad person at heart.
And I think it's what convinces him to kind of side with Calloway more, because he realizes that Harry, especially when he discovers that Harry has been stealing penicillin, I believe, from the hospitals and
from the young people all people, including the children in the hospital, the terrible crime. And still, there's more to come with Harry's friends like Mr. Kurtz and Dr. Winkle, where the poor doorman who they...
Mad? All right, I'm mad.
So it's one of the few film scores to have, one instrument as the main piece of music throughout the whole film. Normally you have various instruments, but this is the one instrument. You would think it would affect the whole film, but it really adds to it and improves a lot of scenes.
It does.
But the chase scene is very... Actually, Orson Welles refused to film the sewer scenes because he thought he would get some kind of disease, and so the director, Carol Reed, ended up putting the assistant director, Guy Hamilton, who later went on to direct, Man with the Golden Gun, Live and Let Die, various other films, Golden Eye and all those sort of James Bond films, and Goldfinger, and they put him in Harry Lime's outfit, and he doubled for Orson Welles during the sewer scenes.
He was a bit of a hypochondriac to Orson, wasn't he, I think? Yeah. A difficult man, but a very, very brilliant
very
man.
Talented actor and
director. And just a marvellous performer. We might review some of his other movies and later Bro movies
maybe
as well.
Later on,
and then you end in a climatic scene where, Harry is ultimately shot then. I think it's... Trevor Howard's character, I think, who shoots him in the end. But I think just a marvelous, wonderful film. Filmed wonderfully, acted wonderfully,
and the ending as well. I hope we're probably gonna. So originally there was a different ending where Holly Martins would reunite with Valley, and they would end up getting together. And Graham Greene, who a lot of his novels are very dark, depressing, downbeat, dour endings, he actually insisted that they film a happy ending. And David O. Selznick and Carol Reed very much wanted the film to end with her ignoring Holly Martins and him walking off into the distance alone, because they felt it would be a more realistic ending for what had happened. And Graham Greene was very, very vehemently against that and really wanted it to end with a happy ending, but eventually they decided to keep the darker, more downbeat ending in. And he actually said afterwards that Carol Reed was right, and that the ending they had wanted was the right ending for the film. And it does take you by surprise when it happens. But
walking alone away the graveyard into the distance as well, no happy ending, but still reminds me slightly of the ending of Casablanca, albeit they go a
Yeah.
different direction, but they've shared the war battle together after the actual funeral of Harry Lime, which takes place
Yes.
after the events of the movie. But ultimately, James, I think it's a movie, just a wonderful movie,
Great
of a
film.
great time,
One of the greats.
and still stands up so well to reviewing.
It's
So
one of those films where like everything works, the editing,
Yeah.
the camera work, the
Yeah.
performances, the direction,
yeah,
it all kind of comes together.
yeah. I think it's a movie as well. I think, James, that it'd be great to catch in the cinema as well. If there's an opportunity comes up in any of its reviewings, I think people should try and catch it there. But the cinematography, the score,
wonderful.
the mesmeric appearance of Harry Lime, and any chance to see Orson Welles on screen should be grabbed as well. The Ferris Wheel scene, like they're all mind-boggling scenes that have lived on forever and will be remembered forever. The tension of his appearance. So great movie. A bit of light to the shade of some of our earlier ones that we reviewed, James. So I think anything else you want to say about the movie before we go?
Not much other than that, basically what you were saying, Dad, about seeing it in a big screen, and it's one of the great films. And if you can get it on Blu-ray or 4K, watch it in your home cinema, you should. It's really very, very good film. Definitely worth a watch.
Yeah. Okay, folks, that's it for the latest episode of Rubber Row Movie. Sorry for the big delay.
It's been a long time.
Been a long time. We were asked to appear in the Academy Awards, etc. So sorry about that
Couldn't
delay.
afford us.
So we'll have more regular updates of movies as well. We've a big schedule coming up. So thank you for all the subscribers. Thank you for watching. Until next time, bye bye from Rubber Row Movies. Bye bye.
Rubber Row Movies.